Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back to Salam Media. It is now 32 minutes past 8, and I'm your host, Thaakir, Dawood, taking you through to the last half an hour of the show. It's been an amazing show thus far, but right now, we're here to remember a legend of the game. Goolam Raja, the former Protea team manager, passed on the 29th of June in Johannesburg. Later that day, we've seen the South African team take to the field wearing black armbands, and they had a moment of silence before the match. This is all out of respect and in memory of the late Goolam Raja, the former Protea team manager. We've also heard that the Proteas player Tabrez Shamsi said that the victory against West Indies was dedicated to the late manager. Just to chat a bit about his life, Mr. Goolam Raja retired after the 2011 World Cup when South Africa was eliminated by New Zealand. Doing this, he managed a total of 107 players that played in 179 tests, 444 ODIs, and a total of 40 T20 matches. This stats alone just shows what a stalwart in the industry is. However, that was only the managing part of it. In his earlier life, he was a pharmacist who, because of the apartheid legislation and, let's say, laws in place, he could not study in South Africa. He then went to Leicester over in the UK to pursue his career to become a pharmacist. Came back, applied his trade, and like many in the sporting industry, they started out as administrators. And then he got to live his dream by taking his side hustle as his main hustle and turning his passion into a reality, guiding us through the process of unity and leading and managing a unified Proteas team. This evening, to tell us more and chat a bit more about his life, we're joined by a top-class panel, one that we couldn't ask for better, from broadcasters to administrators to players that shared a dressing room with him. Will be telling us a bit more about his story. We've got Ashraf Garda, the former Protea selector that spent many times went on many tours. They spent so much time together. And we're also going to be joined by Dr. Moosajee, the former Proteas team manager, that's going to share a bit about his story. There we go, the handsome young man, Makhaya Ntini, and legendary broadcaster Ashraf Garda, an esteemed panel this evening. Gentlemen, I appreciate you all for taking the time out of your evening for joining me. Dr. Moosajee, to start with you, a crazy week it was in the world of cricket. So many things happening, from the Proteas finding victory again, to losing a friend, a brother, to your Ashraf, you as well. Crazy week. I know that from a broadcasting perspective, you're always on top of things, becoming much of a Instagram influencer these days. I see you. But Doc, to start with you, what are some of your favorite memories that you want to start the show off with? Or let's start off with just describing the character of Goolam.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you for having me tonight on this panel, and good evening to your listeners and to your viewers. It has been that topsy-turvy kind of week that you're referring to. More so that there's been some great performances on the field, as you had alluded to earlier. But besides that, I mean, we've lost an absolute giant and a legend of the game. For people that met Goolam, whatever I'm going to tell you about him tonight, most of you know already. For those that have not met him, you will be in awe of the kind of individual that we had the privilege of sharing a ringside seat for many a year. Goolam he was unique. He was that special kind of person that when he walked into a room, he was always the focus and the energy. He was always smiling, always laughing. And the one thing about him, is that whether he was the pharmacist as competent as he could be, whether he was the world-class manager, whether he was the devoted father that we talk about, a loving husband or a treasured friend, he was consistent, he wore a smile on his face, he was affectionate, and he was definitely what we call a giver. And I must tell you, I had the privilege of playing against Goolam as a cricketer in the pre-apartheid or the pre-unity era. And he played for a team called Cavaliers, and I played for a team called Pirates. And people knew those days there was no love lost between Pirates and Cavaliers. And the Raja brothers gave us a tough time, both on and off the field. But Goolam was the eternal gentleman, always trying to calm things when they got out of hand, calm things down. And he had a wonderful, wonderful sense of humor. What I remember most about him is that he gave himself unconditionally. He was a father not only to his family, but certainly to the Proteas and to the broader Cricket South Africa community. In fact, he's one of the few people in Cricket South Africa where the retirement age was 60, and he was asked to stay on until the age of 65, because that's the man that we were dealing with, Mr. Raja himself.
Thanks, Doc. Such a moving tribute there, and I'm sure many can share those memories with you, Mr. Ntini. Good
Yes,
evening.
sir. How are you today? Hi, Doc.
Brilliant. Makhaya, you've shared your sentiments over social media platforms earlier this week. And I mean, to give the listeners and the viewers first-hand experience of it coming straight from you, would you like to share some of your stories?
Yeah, most definitely. I think, each and every single one of us, even the Doc mentioned that as well, that, the first time I met Goolam was 1997. Can you hear me?
Yeah, loud and clear.
Thank you. The first time I met Mr. Goolam was 1997 in Cape Town. My debut for the test match. And then Goolam, he was one of the father figures that actually stood out, within the whole team management. And then I think, for me, it was one of the greatest things that he was the person that he had to pick me up from the airport, and then he explained everything and says, "My name is Goolam Raja. I'm the manager of the team, and then welcome to the team, and then well done." All of those congratulations and all so forth. But to go further, Goolam Raja, he became one of the greatest, person in my environment. I'm telling you, from my downfalls, my celebrations, and all kind of stuff, and success involved, Goolam will be the last person to come and give me a hug. Not because he wanted to be special, because that's how proud he was. He doesn't want to show, how wonderful it is to see one of his sons, doing good on a cricket field. And then I think, from the family point of view, Doc is actually sums it up all. Goolam made sure that we are very welcomed. He leaded up front. Every single thing that we need, Goolam will be the first one to put his hand up and say, "I will do it. Don't worry. Just concentrate on a cricket field. I will do everything for you." And then he always come back and report to us and tell you that, okay, this is the situation. This is how things go back home. If I need something to be sent home, he will make sure that, that gets done. Family wise, he make sure that he keep us informed how our family are doing at home. And then within all of those things, some of us, we take them for granted. But for me, it was one of the things that they became a learning curve as a youngster who just joined the team, to have someone who cares so much about you, who really, really wants to see you do good, taking care of small things. Even if you say, no, I'm okay, I'm going to do it myself, he will be the one to say, no, don't worry, I've already sorted. Even though he hasn't done anything about it, he's already telling you that it's already sorted. So he was that a kind of a person among us. I really enjoy time with Gulam. When Doug says that when he walks into the room, everybody knows that there will be laughter, knows that everything that will be. We don't even pay for the meals when Gulam walks in. He's already saying, "Don't worry, guys. The price is right." So we save a lot of monies. We always look up in the doors and when Kulam is coming in because we know that he's gonna say, "Guls, what's happening here?" I say, no, don't worry. The price is right, and then everybody just walks up quickly and get out of the door because before he changed his mind. So he was that particular person, man. And then Guls right through my cricket career, he was there for me.
Mm,
Even if things they didn't go well, he will come back and say, "Don't worry, you will do good tomorrow." And then he was that particular person. He always motivate every
mm,
single person. I'm not talking about me only. He never had a color, was one of the greatest thing about him. He actually loved everybody equally. He actually treated everybody equally. So
mm,
that kind of a person around you, he was almost like we have it everything in the world that we needed just by having one person around us. Gulam was a great father to me and great father, a family friend as well. And then I really, really, when I heard the news, I was so upset because I was supposed to do, a tribute to him as well for Super Sport, and then I was meant to go and be with him. So when I heard the news, it was heartbreaking.
Makhaya, we're going to chat a bit more about that. I didn't intentionally leave the Gardas for last, but many are asking, how does Ashraf Garda fit into this? So my my perspective is Ashraf has been a broadcaster, a legendary broadcaster. You mentioned broadcasting, you mentioned Robert Marawa, you mentioned Ashraf Garda, and you've seen obviously Goolam Raja, his life and how everything unfolded from a broadcasting perspective, covering cricket stories, covering the stories, knowing what's happening behind the scenes, getting more information. Ashraf, from a broadcast perspective, and you've also known him on a personal level, and you can even give us so much insight as to how things were pre-unity, moving into unity, all aspects of it, because we all know, I mean, not many know, I think it's probably coming out in your book where you talk about how your career in broadcast started. But Ashraf, having Gulam around and from a media perspective, what was it like working with someone like Mr. Raja?
So let me first say this much. I mean, your point about like everybody's asking what is Ashraf Garda doing here. I think the everybody is me because when I was invited, Makhaya, you and Moose may Allah called it. Yes, I was a sports broadcaster, but I was never a cricket reporter. So I didn't go on cricket tours like many of the others. I didn't. Having said that, of course, I'm well acquainted with Goolam Raja and what he's done, and then because of a long history of family connections, we have certainly known him. And then, as many may be aware, that his son Faiz Raja is married to my cousin Tasneem, and that connection is Tasneem is the daughter of Yusuf Garda, who's quite a legendary cricketer and cricket historian in his own right. And Morris Garda, who'll come on just now, would be my uncle and Tasneem's uncle as well. So I mean, there's a whole lot of a bit of a dynasty that has taken place in connecting many people around that. And maybe, and I stand to be corrected on this one here, but maybe I'll just pick up on that one there because I sort of remember Uncle Goolam, and I'll call him that right through because that's how he was to us, saying something like one day, and this is not a cricket story, it's like one day my son Faiz was studying pharmacy just like him, comes to him and says, Dad, I've met a girl that I think I'm curious about. I think I want to possibly contemplate marriage with her. And he's like, but who's the family? And when he mentions I think the uncle's name is like Yusuf Garda. And I remember Gulam say he laughed because, Yusuf Garda, Yusuf Chap Garda, and I mean the families have been intertwined mainly through cricket all the years. So I mean that's the point. And but to talk about today and what I can and can't say. So I can't say what I don't know. I think Dr. Moosajee will say a lot more. Makhaya Ntini will say a lot more. Mohammed Garda, I think, should say a lot more as a selector. But I can just say a couple of things. Probably as the least qualified person to say a few things. One is that having been the national manager of a cricket team, and in this case, the South African cricket team for 20 years, is an astonishing achievement. It is just absolutely remarkable. Okay. And you know, when you reach that level of consistency, you don't get carried through to say, well, we don't like him, but we keep him with us anyway. There must be something that you're contributing that is quite remarkable. Now, you made the point earlier on, Thaakir, about, you know, he has sort of been witness to capping 107 players, and that just gives you a sense of his contribution, right? So I think that's one. So in many ways, to play on the words, I'm saying he managed South Africa for 20 years. Because in many ways, cricket was South Africa. It was everything. It meant so much to us. That's one. The other is, I want to say this because we related through family. We would often find ourselves sitting at family lunches or late afternoon teas, and you know the guys talk a whole lot of nonsense about different things and whether Makhaya Ntini is a good cricketer or not. You know, I'm just kidding about it. But we don't have that about the cricket team. And of course, the central person is Goolam Raja because he's sitting there, right? And I can tell you now, Goolam will say a few things of general nature, and then some people want to press him about some personal things. And I tell you now, it's happened on more than one occasion. He'll say, sorry, I have a journalist sitting with us here, referring to myself, and he says, I will not say anything else. So Moose, he's kept shut on many occasions because he was aware of my presence there, and he said, I will not talk about it. The other part is my uncle, so Yusuf Chap Garda, has made the point on many occasions that Goolam must write a book. Now, and maybe two books. One is managing the formula to manage a national cricket team, which he felt was would be it would be a formula. It would be something that it's a book, a textbook that should be put up at universities about managing. You know, talk about managing your life. So you manage a cricket team, and the other was on the story of Goolam Raja as a manager. Now, unless things have changed, and I don't know any better, I remember Uncle Goolam as recently as a few months ago telling myself and my wife Jamila, is like, I will not write a book because for me to write this much awaited book, for it to have currency, it would mean I have to reveal every dressing room story that has existed in my 20 years. And you'll be very happy about this, Makhaya. He said, I am not
I know.
Right? And he said, I'm not prepared to do that. So the truth is, most of us will have stories, and unless it's changed, and I don't think he's done anything, he's like, I will not write. And we're like, but what about the legacy? What about your own history? He says, I have built up friendships with all these people over the years, and I am not going to ruin those friendships by revealing inner secrets and a treasured secrets. That is what I've taken with me on tour and as part of the national manager. So I think in that answer is the tragedy of we don't have the book, so we don't have his inside story. But in that answer as well is the remarkable legacy of a human being who's a comrade, who's one of the guys, and he's been with them all throughout 2 decades. And I think that is absolutely remarkable. And perhaps the last thing, I mean, I'll just say for now, because others really have more profound insights, is I think we all know that he had this gentle soul, but even away from the cricket pitch, and in later years, whenever we went to, particularly to Nando's in Sandton City, because, you know, the family owned it, right? Whenever Uncle Goolam would see us, myself and my wife in particular, he was always running to come and sit down and literally not serve us, but to sit on our table and talk to us. And then you find from other people, he didn't sit with Ashraf Garda because I'm the VIP. He actually sat with everybody because that was his way, right? And I think it is that remarkable attention to detail on a human being to human being connection that made Goolam Raja what he is. So in conclusion, when you ask yourself, why would a person be able, or how would a person be able to manage South Africa for 20 years? He would do so because he saw the champion qualities in every single human being, and he expressed it in his one-to-one relationship with that. And by the way, that's what a cricket team wants, because currently, when we talk about COVID-19, very topical, and how it's being managed in the country, and the information and lack of information, what do people want? They want the one-on-one level of communication as to what's actually going on. And the fact that Goolam Raja could do that as a manager, not as a coach, he left it then to the coaches and the players to do what they did. And as we know, maybe the sad point is we didn't win a World Cup with him as a manager. But the period that Goolam Raja and people like Makhaya Ntini and maybe Dr. Moosajee later on, and Ashraf Garda coming on as a national selector, in many ways was a period of incredible consistent highs for this national team. They didn't win a cup, but as a copybook to say how to deliver excellence as a cricket team, well, Goolam Raja was part of all of that. And you have to think, if he got it right off the field, he left it for the others to get it right on the field.
Definitely. And it's so much, it makes life so much easier for the guys that are on the field, like Makhaya and obviously Doc. But now we're going to chat to Ashraf Garda, who has been a selector of the national team for many years. And Morris, I know you're somewhere there. Can you share with us the journey of what it was like coming through unity into a unified national team setup, and from your perspective as a selector, what it was like working with Goolam at that level?
First of all, thanks for inviting me. Appreciate it. And hello to Makhaya, Doc, and Ashraf. And just before I tell you a few things about Goolam, I just spoke to Mohammed Faiz, the son, and he says, please, tell everybody thank you for all the fantastic messages and the prayers for his father and family. And they really appreciate it. If you can, it will be, really a good feeling to communicate with the people who are so close to my dad. So I said, definitely I will. The beauty part of Goolam was that he was a humble man. Bottom line, the bigger and the higher the position came, he became more humbler. And although we grew up together, played cricket together, but the experiences I had with him on tours, and I had about 5 or 6 tours with him, the great thing about him was he treated, as Makhaya said, everybody equally, but he made everybody feel welcome as players, even the new players. And off the pitch, many times we used to sit in the room and I would say, Goolam, let's go out and have a meal. And he says, no, Morris, I've got a lot of work. I've got so much paperwork to do. Now, we realize, we think that the manager is just a glamour person there, but there's a lot of work behind the scenes. And he took it in his stride. There was nothing too big or too small for him. I'll give you examples, right? That one evening I told him, let's go out. He said, no, we got to go. I've got to go and drop all the bags. We were in Australia. I think from Sydney we were flying to Brisbane. And at 6 in the morning, so I told Goolam, please, I'll help you. And he said, no, it's not necessary. I said, no, I'd like to come and see what you do. At 6 in the morning, he was arranging the bags for all the players. At night, they brought the stuff in the foyer. We organized it. He took it. The players were only coming to the airport, whether it was 10, 12 o'clock, whatever. It took them 2 minutes to go through. But the amount of work this gentleman did before that was magnificent. When you only realize to make arrangements like that, to go to the airport with, so many bags. It's unbelievable. And he was sorted out. He organized the hotels for the players. The players were like his children. Like Makhaya, he treated you like a son. He always said, "That's my son." From the first day we met on that test match in Cape Town, I'll never forget. And he always had a beautiful and a lovely and a soft spot for Makhaya. That was our man. He always said that, right? And when we used to be together, we used to discuss these things. And we spoke about, the wives, the kids. The wives, they wanted to do shopping. Goolam is ever ready to help, and he'll arrange somebody to get things done. Cricket South Africa really should appreciate him because on a trip, the excess baggage, he used to go and make arrangements so they can get a better deal. The cell phone cards on an overseas, so people want to phone home to South Africa. He would make arrangements. And I said, all these things, he said, no, we got to do it. Our boys must be happy. So these things go unnoticed because, we only think of the cricket. But besides the cricket part, there's 101 things he did. Small things like one day we were together and one of the players had forgotten toothpaste. And you'd say, he said, Goolam, I want to get toothpaste. He said, don't worry, I'll sort it out. I said, Goolam, what are you talking about? Toothpaste? He says, no, man, these are like our boys. He went to get toothpaste. So you can see the humbleness of a father treating his son or the grandchildren to say whatever they want, we must never say no. And that's the beauty part. That's why after 11 years out of bin management, people still at this stage contact and say what a man he was. He was a really an honest, a great human being. To me, that is so important because he cared for everybody, And when you can see it from the tributes, people phoned me for the past few days and they said, he did this for us. He helped us in a certain way, which they didn't mention. But I know he was a very soft man, and he never fought. And even when we selected players, and at times may not have been the right selection or, a popular selection, he never sort of gave his views. He said, whoever you pick, we give him 100% support. That's what I liked about Goolam. He was a very honest, the go-to man. Everybody, you need anything, you go there. Makhaya will be the first one to tell you that, that's our man. You need anything, Goolam, we need certain things. So those things, the love of cricket, many times Goolam used to sit with us and he used to be very quiet. And I used to see that. And I'll start talking about cricket and it's a different person because the love was so much for cricket. And you could speak to him for hours and hours about cricket. So, from all of us, we're missing a person who was close to our heart. A few months ago, he told me, Morris, I must come and visit you. I want to sit in your garden. And I said, what? Okay, and I said, yeah, I must come. So about 3 months ago, he came and he sat with me for a few hours. And you know what? It's all about cricket. Let's talk cricket, talk about our friends. So he had no malice in him. No malice. So to me, that as a human being, although we're speaking about cricket, about him, but look at the other side of him. The other side, the loving father, and that's why his son was saying, please, on behalf of my mother, himself, the sisters, Zoraida, the brother-in-law, Yusuf, they really appreciate what people have done. And we also realize that he was, when somebody is with you, you don't realize you got a gem with. When he's gone, we realize what a great person he was. So we must respect him. May Allah Pak give him, and may he rest in peace. But he was a wonderful, wonderful, good human being.
Inshallah. And for all the listeners and the viewers at home, this is a community show, and you guys are also involved. So we've got the Tabang commenting there saying, "May his soul rest in peace, Uncle Goolam. We'll miss you every day. Smile." And these are all comments that are so true. And Abdurrahman as well jumping in the comments there. But Doc, coming back to you, being a team doctor, having a pharmacist in the setup, did it somehow make your life easier as the team doctor?
You must remember we had a person who gave up his profession for his passion. Goolam was an exceptionally competent pharmacist who had 2 practices in Indonesia at the height of running a business. And he gave that up to become the team manager of South Africa because that was his passion. And that just speaks volumes of the man that we're dealing with. He was always what we call the servant first. He focused on the needs of others, especially team members, before he considered his own. And having a pharmacist in the team always made it easy, because when it came to medication, I didn't have to even worry, because he knew about all the medication that was available in any country that we traveled to. But more importantly, if you look at Goolam as a person, and Makhaya will bear testimony to this, he made us realize very early on, when we were involved in the South African setup, that it was never about us. It was more about the team and the difference one could make to ensure that there's success on the field. We had to stretch ourselves that extra mile, and often, like Goolam, make sacrifices to make a difference. He was one of those leaders, what we call that eats last. He was always focused on what's going to benefit the team at the expense of himself. I remember early on in my career, when he asked me to join as a team doctor to Bangladesh, he called me up and he said, "Listen, Sunny," because that was his favorite word. "Hey, Sunny, I need you to join us on a trip to Bangladesh as the team doctor. But I'm telling you now, we don't have a budget in place, but I promise you a journey of your lifetime." And he was so right. The times that I had on tour with Goolam was definitely unforgettable. And Ashraf speaks about writing a book. Goolam is such a humble and kind-hearted man. I don't think he'll want to write a book to hurt anyone. But there's so much of intellectual capacity that sits with him that he could write a draft of the logistics of a tour sitting at the desk without pen and paper. He could just talk it through, and the person on the other side would have to jot everything down. But that's all the intellectual capacity that's set in the man that we're talking about.
Being a sport academic myself, I can promise you that there is no textbook out there that would tell you how to logistically plan a tour. Yes, there's guidelines, but there is no step-by-step process as to how you can get through a tour. And I think that's probably something that should be documented. Makhaya, coming to you.
Yes, sir.
Having someone like Mr. Raja in the setup, having you as a son, taking care of all the off-field things, allowing you just to focus on your game. How has that helped you develop as a player from your debut right through until the day you hung up your boots?
I think it's dark. It just it says it all. And I think from my point of view, I didn't have to worry of anything else besides being on the cricket field. Goolam will make sure that my flying tickets are in order. He will call me in advance to tell me that, okay, we need your passport and all kinds of stuff. So I was never being in a position whereby I needed to worry, so for him to call me or to remind me of something, it was already been done, documented on an email. So I just read through everything that I needed to do. Man, I'm talking from the playing kit point of view, every single thing in number, you will get it in one bag. So those kind of things, they really made life with ease. And he would tell you that your bags, they need to be out at 10 o'clock at night. Thinking that, okay, he's going to wake us up and say, let's go and pack them into the bus. No, we wake up, everything is gone. If you have extra clothes that you went out the night before, you have no place to put them because the bags are already gone. So he was that kind of a manager whereby when he says something, take it as done. Even if we make mistakes, he doesn't shout at you. He really sit down with you and said, okay, this is what you have done wrong. This is what you needed to be, that you needed to be get done. So those are kind of things that they really made sense to us as we now raising our own kids. So from learning from him and how you treat a person that is you don't even know. It made so much ease with life. It made you understand that you must love every single person that is surrounded you, regardless of where he comes from. So you must make sure that the person is sitting next to you, he doesn't feel that he's not welcome next to you. Those were the lesson that Goose has taught us. Our children, when they see him, they always call him Uncle Goolam. He will play with them. So that on its own, that was teaching us more and more about how to become a father figure, how to carry for someone who has nothing. Talking about the likes of bags and all kind of stuff. It really changed our lives. And then I remember when I retired, and scratching my head trying to think where to start because I have to do all of these things by myself. I don't have someone that he just give you a ticket and say, here's your ticket, here's your passport. Now you have to do it on your own. It took me a couple of times, that to get used to it in those kind of things. So, but I think overall, yeah, Goolam was a teacher to us. He was not just a father in a working environment. He was someone that actually show us the way and show us what life, it is all about.
As you can see, the family there sharing some of their stories. Riza, Sirat saying, my dearest uncle, the stories we hear is all true. The stories we have as families forever cherished. Your last words to me was thank you. Phew. Yeah, some heartwarming stuff there. May Allah grant him the highest of places in the year after. You deserve it. Ashraf Garda, coming to you. Your time to shine again. Being a manager of a country, and now, like you know him as a community figure, how was that balance as to knowing you're dealing with someone that the country holds in such a high regard, and now on a community level, he's just this down-to-earth person that you're chatting to, like just an average guy that you'd meet every day?
And I think that's a difficult one to answer. I'll tell you why. We, as Gardas, historically, we've come from a cricketing family. So there's always been connections with heroes. My first cricketing hero was Morris Garda. I can tell you that now. When I was a lighty, Morris played for the Transvaal cricket team, and he was probably together with, I think, Dickie Conrad, the two best batsmen in the Sackbok era. Why am I saying this? We've been used to sort of idealizing sports people who just happen to be someone close to you anyway. So, you could say the same about Goolam, but the same about Morris as well, and many others, right? So no, that was not difficult at all. And I think that switch between, being an uncle or a cousin or somebody at home, I think as opposed to someone on the cricket pitch or television was quite normal and not difficult at all. I mean, if I can, I just want to move on because I'm not too sure how much time we have left. Okay, the question then is what happens next. So firstly, I think it is with great sadness that Goolam Raja's innings has come to an end. I know he spent 7 weeks in hospital, and I know I messaged his son Faiz virtually every few days and praying, oh God, inshallah, if Allah wills, let him survive. And there were rumors a few weeks ago that he had passed on because somebody with a similar name had passed on. We just hoped it could survive. And sadly, it's taken COVID-19 for him to succumb. So his innings on this world has come to an end. But as a person who has been quoted saying, cricket's not my first love. My first love is my faith, my Islamic faith, and my family. So he would be well aware that his journey in this world was always going to be temporary, and his innings on this world is temporary. And in cricket, when you play Test cricket, it's always 2 innings. So in that sense, his second innings will start now, which for most people in cricket will tell you it's the second innings that is the most decisive one, because that sets up the victory. And we pray, therefore, in the second innings of Goolam Raja's life, inshallah, the innings of the year after, that will be the most pleasing. So I make dua that inshallah Allah grants him Jannah. I make dua that his family, who I know, his son and his daughter and his wife and his son-in-law, daughters-in-law, and grandchildren, and all of us, they've lost a gem. We know that, right? And then even in the restaurant business, they've lost a gem. So I'm pretty sure their hearts are touched, but I'm sure they would also be aware of the role that their father has made. The mark is left with all of us, but with them as well. And we've only seen, the point Morris made, Uncle Morris, about the tributes. They were phenomenal. Now, not just South Africans like the Makhaya Ntinis and the Hashim Amlas and the A.B. de Villiers and Sean Pollock, people we obviously expect, right? But I think when you get people like Brian Lara and Mahela Jayawardene of Sri Lanka glowingly talking about him, who's not even their manager. I can't remember any of us talking about another country's manager. So when they talk about him in that sense, you must then understand this man has left a massive mark. So I'll say this much in conclusion, right? What should South Africa do next? First of all, that template about managing South Africa needs to be hopefully written by other people to try and pierce it all together. That's the first thing. Secondly, Cricket South Africa, I would like to think they need to honor him differently. I think the government needs to honor him. They have the presidential awards that comes up in April every year. That needs to happen, because if he's represented his country as a servant for 20 years on the global stage, that is the type of champions you want to honor, right? So that's number 2. Number 3, Cricket South Africa, I think probably needs to honor him with, if they have a leadership cause in their offices, it probably needs to be named the Goolam Raja Leadership Course. That's 2. The next one, I'd like to think at the very least there should be a test series at least named after Goolam Raja. I would really think that needs to be the case. And ideally, since he managed the dressing room, I would like to think that the dressing room of one of the big stadiums, Wanderers or Newlands, needs to be named the Goolam Raja dressing room. Something along that line, because I think it is powerful in its symbolism. The final point for me, and I'll borrow from the movement that I drive called Champion South Africa. We talk about champion people building champion nations, and champion people building champion people. And Goolam Raja is a perfect example of a person who was a servant, but by ensuring that he helped grow people into champion people, he can be seen very much as a champion in his own right. And that's the highest accolade I can give to him. Sadly, as so often happens, we're not telling him in his presence, but the reality, as we talk now, he is in the presence of a being far greater than all of us, in the presence of God or Allah Almighty.
Definitely moving. That's so moving, Ashraf. And see that we're all gents on this panel. I just received a WhatsApp from a female saying, she goes by the name of Leila Stein, and many in the CSA and the sporting administrators would know her. She is one of the powerhouses of the female administrators and changing the game and taking the game to the next level. And she mentions that Uncle Goolam was the first man that made her feel inclusive in cricket. And he showed her the ropes and taught her everything she knows today during her internship at the Cobras. And as we know, sport predominantly male, it's male dominated. Finally, the playing fields are slowly starting to level, not yet leveled. But for a female that is now one of the powerhouses in sport administration, to say something like that about a gentleman, to make her feel inclusive, we're talking of a good 10, 15 years ago. It just shows the type of person that he was. Morris, to come back to you, you spoke about what a humble man he was and how soft-hearted he was, but he's also guided us through very difficult times in this country. And with you as well, guiding us through the tough periods and facilitating the process of the meetings through with government and with the fellow administrators and with the sports departments in, let's say, the late 80s. What kind of man was Mr. Raja in the boardroom, where he was still the soft figure but had to remain firm at the same time? Because, like many would say, he was an administrator first before he stepped into the team manager role. Marius, did you get that?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can now, loud and clear.
Hello?
Mm-hmm. Yes,
Can
we can
you
hear
hear
you.
me? I said the fact that he was honest and respected, so when he spoke, people listened. And the beauty part of it, being a manager for so many years, the fact that he was nominated to be the manager of ICC in the World Series against Australia, that's alone an achievement in an award where people all over the world thought very highly of him. We were, I think, very fortunate that we were lucky in our way to be part of his life, and obviously we'll miss him. But he was, although he was a quiet person, politically he was very, very aware of what was happening. So he was not going to stand back. He definitely motivated all the good things for a complete non-racial country. And he was involved in always behind the scenes. And we were always discussing these things. And he played a huge part in the transformation of this country in the cricket field. And as Ashraf says, if one day Cricket South Africa would like to honor him, I think it will be a very, very good and an important event for everybody. For us, we loved him, we respected him. And what can I say? Because he was very close to me, we'll miss him. And the family will miss him. I got a call from Ireland, a lady by the name of Fish, used to work for CSA. She cried over the phone. She phoned me from Ireland and she says, I just heard about it. This is going back. I mean, the man has been out of cricket for so many years, but because he touched them in some way or the other, people forget after a year. 2 years, the man was out of cricket for so long, and yet he left some legacy for us to carry on, to say, if you're a good person, good things will happen. And for his family, we make dua that Allah Pak make it easy for them. And for Goolam, Allah Pak give him Jannatul Firdaus. For all, I'm sure Makhaya will tell me the same thing, that we will miss our dear brother Goolam. For Makhaya, he'll say, I'll miss my dad, because he touched him in some way or the other. And for Mohammed, who worked so many years with him, I'm sure he'll feel the same. So I can't say much, but we will definitely miss him.
No, definitely. I have to thank management on my side for allowing us to overrun this evening. But just to wrap things up, Doc, to start with you, do you want to share lastly one of your most memorable memory before we close off the show? And I'll go around the room and we'll just share, get the gentlemen sharing their most memorable memories with Goolam Raja before we close off the show.
Thank you. I think for me, I'll be forever grateful. He's taught me, he's taught us so much. He taught me about life. He's put things in perspective, about family, about profession. And my one memory is that after the 2017 Champions Trophy, he actually contacted me to come and see him. So I sat and had a coffee with him to tell me that, listen, your time is also up traveling with the team. And now you need to focus on spending time with the family and concentrating on your medical practice, and not to make the same mistake that he had made, because he had sacrificed a hell of a lot. And when I did eventually retire, he was one of the first persons that I called, and I said that day has come. So, I mean, we shared a lot on tours, we spoke a lot. but he was just an incredible human being who I think we need to celebrate the life well lived. And there's so much of lessons in there for people, not in just what he said, but in what he did. And for that, he was just a remarkable, remarkable man. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Doc. Makhaya, over to you, man.
If I can think back, sorry. I remember playing my 100th test cap. And then Goolam came to me and said, do you realize what we have achieved? And then I said, Gools, I have no idea. And then he says to me, there is no one in the history of South Africa that you, Makhaya, you'll be the first person to play 100 tests in the world of cricket, especially in our country. The reason why he was saying that, he never thought that since the apartheid and all of that, that we will have that opportunity, that we can be able to showcase our talent and then being able to achieve as much as we did. So he was the first person that came to me that no one ever thought that you could do that. Well done. And then I've been part of that right through until today. I always remember those words every single time, I meet up with him and I says, Gools, you remember these words? And then he says, I can never forget them. So I always saying that Goolam was not just a father figure. He kept every single detail of every single achievement that we have achieved, especially us as a black people in this country.
Makhaya, thank you so much for those words. Ashraf, over to you.
Yeah, so I was thinking about what can I say in conclusion. I mean, one story, and here's one that will fascinate you, right? Many may be aware that in the initial years of Hashim Amla's entry into international cricket and provincial cricket, I was part of a group of people that owned a company that managed his interests. That's in the very early stages, maybe the first 2-3 years of his international career. Okay, so because he did so well playing for the provincial team, he got catapulted to play, I think, for the South African A team, which is like the B team against Zimbabwe. And that presented the first challenge for Hashim Amla, which is the now well-known story of wearing the Castle Lager logo on his jersey, right? And of course, being a devout Muslim, it was something he was most uncomfortable with. And he called me and he says, look, I got a problem. I don't really want to wear this thing. So to cut a long story short, we all know what happened. At the end of the day, Cricket South Africa relented and said, fine. First, they had just a blank red square, and then they dropped that whole thing completely. And to go from back to front, it ended with General Majola saying, okay, go ahead. To before that, the SA Breweries sports sponsorship guys that we had met up and said, we're fine with it. And before that, it went to the convener of selectors at that time was Omar Henry. But the very first conversation around the Hashim Amla Castle Lager logo took place at Spur in Rosebank. As you may know, the restaurant owned by the Raja Bamji family, and that was a conversation between myself and now the late Uncle Goolam Raja, who, when I explained the problem, he said, do it as the first point of call. Don't go to general first. Go to the convener of selectors, because that's the procedure. And I'm pretty sure Cricket South Africa will be on side in making sure that as a country that is reflective of understanding the religious persuasions that we come from compared to what happened in apartheid South Africa, the end will be favorable. But he did say, he said, don't go to the very end. Do the process right. Get to Omar Henry first. So that was the next port of call. But that first conversation, which I think is a milestone in terms of South Africa's tolerance for different persuasions and cricketers, happened between myself and Goolam Raja.
Such an amazing story. Such an amazing story. And just to think of it, there's so many roles that a manager plays in a team, not just as like Makhaya says as a father, like Doc says, the roles that he played. It's all of those smaller things into making sure that our industry is so inclusive in the sporting fraternity. And I think as a manager, who better to have in that position to facilitate the process than him? Mohammed Garda, before we close off the show, you were very close to him for many years, being the national selector. We'll take your comments last.
Well, hello. We will miss him. We will miss him, and we were lucky to be part of his life. We pray everything goes well, and we all loved him. And we love, our country, so we must care for him, and we must respect his family and pray for them as well. And thank you again for inviting us to, talk about our friend. We appreciate it.
Ameen. May Allah grant him Jannatul Firdaus.
Inshallah.
Gentlemen, thank you so much from my side. I appreciate it. We could have done something on a bigger stage, on a bigger scale, but this is the least that we could do for a legend of such stature and someone who South African sport holds in such high regard. Thank you so much for your time this evening. From Mohammed Garda, Dr. Moosajee, Makhaya, Ashraf Garda. From my side, I appreciate your contributions and thank you so much for taking the time out of your evening to pay tribute to such a legend.
Thank you, and it's been a privilege.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, gentlemen. To the Salam Media listeners and viewers at home, from myself, Thaakir Dawood, that is our Friday night show. Friday Night Sport with Thaakir Dawood comes to an end this week. If you missed any of the interviews, you can get them on our social media platforms. We started off with Jean-Ray Overmeyer, a rugby player who wants to go after his dream and chase his dream of representing the Samurais over in Dubai at the Sevens. Then we moved on and chatted to the nation builder, Mr. Mark Williams, who scored a brace in the AFCON 1996 and guided South Africa to lifting the trophy. He told us a bit about his autobiography that he's going to be launching. Amazing, amazing stuff that he's doing. And then we ended off the show with a tribute to Goolam Raja, the former Protea manager. Very heartwarming and moving stories. And you missed any of it, you can get it on Salam Media social media platforms. I will share on mine as well if you missed anything. But from myself, Thaakir Dawood, the team behind the scenes, that's it from us this evening. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.